All right, guys, it's that time of year. It's FFPC Playoff Challenge week on ship chasing. Of course, we got the regular and Ben Gretsch. We have our buddies, our Rotoviz brethren. I believe when we did our first ever Playoff Challenge show, they were the two that joined us. It is, of course, Hasan, Rahim, Blair, Andrews. How are we doing, guys?
Doing great. Can't wait to finally take this contest down. It's been a few years we've been going for it, but
that's right. I feel like we were doing lots of audio and video content on this contest before it was cool. A lot of Johnny come latelys getting in the biz now.
And they're all doubting the chalk. Surprise, surprise.
So tonight, what we have for you, we did a first look on Monday. If you guys missed that show with Pat, Ben, and Davis, you can check that out. We're going to get into Pat's ownership projections tonight. Blair has an article up on Rotoviz with his expected points model looking at this contest. We have Hasan's proprietary boomer Opto that we are going to reveal tonight. And then, of course, Ben Gretsch, we have been in the weeds on Discord today, talking through all kinds of different scenarios. Ben has been wrapping his beautiful brain around this, so lots of good stuff. Blair, why don't we start with you? What were some of your kind of first takeaways from the article and research you put up today on Rotoviz?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me was just looking at the expected games played and even the weighted expected games played, because the Super Bowl, counts double. When you factor that into the projections, it makes a bigger difference than I thought. So, these guys, for instance, like Mahomes, who we know is not going to play in the first week, he has a great per game projection. But it starts to become a question about whether he's a better play than someone who you could expect for possibly more games like Josh Allen. So that's something that I found that was interesting and worth paying attention to pretty closely.
Hasan, what are your kind of initial takes after diving in on stuff this week?
Yeah, I think when you're just kind of getting into the injury news and sort of where the pivots and the fades would come in, especially with recency bias factoring in, especially over the last 4 weeks, you can see I sent it around and we can get into this in a little bit, but there's definitely a few guys who we think will push the 69% range, which is pretty nice ownership to fade some of these guys if you're looking at it.
Were you doing a 69 nice joke, or was that just completely organic?
It was actually completely organic, just because I was looking at some of the ownership we got here, and I think we're a little bit on the low side projecting some of these guys at about that 70% range, right? You really can see ownership on a player like Kamara going into the 80% range.
Yeah. Ben, what has been some of the things or maybe new thoughts you've had since we last talked on Monday? Anything starting to crystallize for you?
There's obviously a lot of interesting things about this contest. You guys have done a lot more work on projected ownership. I'm excited to hear those takes. Obviously, what we want to do is find smart places where we can leverage off of that. I think we talked about lineup telling a story, but I think something that's interesting is when we talk about things like the projected games played, it's easy to like guys more who have a second potential game. But one thing we know for certain is 6 of the 14 teams are going to play one game, potentially more. So just because a team or an individual player looks very unlikely for more than one game doesn't necessarily mean he's a worse play than somebody who projects for multiple games and might only play one game. So trying to kind of figure that out, think through that. Don't just write guys off because they're projected for 1.1 game. We were talking a little bit about Logan Thomas today, as a total contrarian tight end play. There's going to be several other teams that look better right now that are only going to play one game. So you can't completely write those plays off.
Pat, how much because you did your initial ownership run on Monday. I haven't gotten to look at it closely. Have there been any big changes?
Well, one thing that I was thinking about was the way people are going to handle LA. So I think that, with Goff looking very, very unlikely now, the ownership on the offensive side is really going to condense to Akers. But then I also think people are going to want to jam that defense because if you're not playing LA to win more than a game, they're a pretty attractive way. That's a pretty attractive way to fade them. They're going to be a highly projected defense. So, if you're looking at optimals and stuff, you'll see a lot of LA defense in there. So that's one that jumps out. And then I think the Tampa Bay situation with Mike Evans, that's going to be the one to really keep an eye on because it's not just about whether or not Mike Evans gets that owned. He's going to potentially drive ownership for Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, a little bit for Gronkowski. But I also think Evans is also going to drive ownership for Brady. Like if Evans is going, but people don't really want to play him and they don't want to play Godwin as much, that actually might drive some ownership to Tom Brady, which in turn could drive ownership down for guys like Lamar, Josh Allen. So those are the two situations that come to mind.
Yeah, just anecdotally, one of the comments we had gotten on our Monday show on the YouTube channel, which you should subscribe to. We just passed 1,000 subs. Shout out to us.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did
It's
it.
Monday?
Monday.
Why are we bought some champagne around here? What's going on?
We're about to monetize this bitch. You guys are going to have to deal with ads, motherfuckers. Anyway, sorry. Got real excited for that. Yeah, someone was saying, can I play Metcalf and use Rams D? So I think people are wanting to target this game, but soft fade the Rams for sure with the uncertainty at the quarterback situation. And I do think one interesting dynamic, with the ownership too, I think you have two factors. You have how comfortable people are identifying the best play on a team. You mentioned Tampa Bay. They're pretty difficult. It's been that way for DFS. Like the Bucs haven't been owned in DFS because you don't know who's going to catch the passes there. So I think that's a spot we might want to target. And then we also have recency bias too. I mean, we've seen Ben Gretsch, your boy, Jonathan Taylor, destroying worlds out here, but might not be a great play as a one and done guy in a negative game script. So those are two of the things I'm monitoring here. Should we start? I feel like we should start with Hasan's Boomer Opto, guys. This gives us a good launch point. So
good, dude. I saw it in the spreadsheet today, and I was like, whoever did this nailed it. It's perfect.
Pat, can we get this up? You want to share? Can you share this in the screen or even the image with it?
Yeah, which one is it in?
It's in the towing tab, just under the FFPC.
Yeah. So while Pat pulls this up, what I'll say, so obviously a big thing for this contest is because anyone can play whoever they want, we're going to see a lot of chalk. We're going to see a lot of similar lineups, maybe not lineups that are, the full lineup is duped over, but a lot of 8v8, 7v7s, people condensing on this. So Hasan, as a true method actor, has gotten inside the mind of an FFPC boomer and figured out how they're going to set this lineup. And this is going to be our launch point here. Pat's pulling it up. Let's zoom in here on this Excel, Pat. And Hasan,
I've been drinking a lot of lead gasoline, like just really get into the feeling here. So we can go through this one by one. So Brady is the
At first I was supposed to see FFPC grinder mindset.
Dude, when you're waking up every morning at 7 a.m. to just huff lead paint, it's definitely a grinder mindset, my friend.
Oh my god.
So we know people think that the Buccaneers, no one really knows what to do with them, but people are too afraid to play any pass catchers or even the running backs from this offense. So they're going to be definitely interested in getting a piece of this offense, and I think they're going to do it through Brady because it allows them to play some of the other guys on other teams. Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara, that's just like a non-starter, right? Like you just know that those are going to be the two running backs that they're going to want to actually roster, and then couple that with the two wide receivers. We just saw both Adams and Diggs completely smash. And this is where I'm really looking for some feedback because people just hate rostering wide receivers in the flex, right? So you can see them going with Kelsey, obviously just coming off a massive season in TE premium. They're going to overvalue Kelsey, and then they're going to overvalue Mark Andrews. And then they're going to just, because, they're afraid of paying pass catchers or like literally any other skill players. And the other teams are just going to go with the 3 running backs. And then because it's, the Steelers' defense is always good. It was good back when they were like young kids, remember the Iron Curtain? Well, there you go. Steelers defense. And there's your, and because you're going to want, to soft fade the Rams because you don't know if you're going to get Goff or Walford. You're going with Matt Gay, and that makes Chicago and Washington your hard fades because those are 2 of the worst teams. So I think that's just like the way this is going to be, in my opinion, the most dupe lineup you're going to see. It's going to be like 100, like you're going to see about 100 dupes of this.
That's funny. There was 95 dupes last year.
So I think this is going to be it. I think this is it. This is it. This is the chalk of the chalk. And someone playing is just going to be like, this is it. This is the one. And they're going to fire the one bullet off. And it's going to be like, oh shit, like 95 people have this. Like, why did I do this to myself?
That's what I was going to say. That's the one change that I think we might
Deonte.
see.
Yeah, Deonte, Cody Parkey. Like I was really struggling because I think Deonte's ownership will be really, really high relative to any other Steelers skill player. Like you're going to literally want any other Steelers pass catcher not named Deonte Johnson.
Yeah, this to me I think is the most duped.
It's hard to see, the Josh lineup not including Chubb though.
Yeah, so you know what it could be actually? It could be this. It could be.
I think Ramsey.
I think people want to jam Akers too, so they got to get Akers in.
Yeah, there's always so many running back possibilities.
Akers was definitely like a consideration for me, but like with Walford under center, like, do you think they're going to be able to sustain drives long enough for Akers to be a viable play, right? Like, but like I think just starting this entire discussion off from a broader macro perspective, because we've got 2 more flex spots than we usually do.
Akers.
They're not going to play Akers, man.
Yeah. You might see a lot of people maybe do Deonte instead of Mark Andrews, and then Justin Tucker at kicker.
Yeah, for the Baltimore soft trade, right? Yeah. So like but we're still trying to like a lot, like the meat of this team contains guys who have like 2+ games, and they're just going to be the chalk of the chalk, and they're going to assume these rando soft fades are going to work out for them, and that's just not how it's going to go, right?
Somewhere, all the 55-year-olds in our audience are just throwing up their papers. Back to the drawing board.
I love that you said Iron Curtain instead of Steel Curtain. I missed that, but
So I think the big domino, I think, in the Boomer Opto is, do they feel comfortable playing Brady? Or are they going to gravitate more towards wanting? It is just so hard to get off of Adams, Diggs, and Kelsey, which I think where the quarterbacks would otherwise come from in the Boomer Opto.
And people might go to Lamar there instead of Brady. Yeah. We're talking about getting off Andrews and Tucker. I think if they get off Andrews, they might go to Lamar.
Right.
And then I think they'd play Antonio Brown instead of Chris Godwin, by the way.
Interesting. That might be right.
Or Suckup.
Or Deonte and Chubb.
Yeah.
The thing, and I do kind of
like... What about Roto? Is he boomery or not?
No.
No, not at all. I think your projection of Roto is too high.
Romo's in the Brooklyn hipster Opto.
Yeah.
I love it.
He should be boomery, but they all just hate him too much for him to be boomery.
It is weird that he is it. Like, he should. Yeah, I agree with you. It is weird.
If you want this to be the Boomer Opto, it's got to have Antonio Brown.
It probably needs David Montgomery in there.
Sorry to Henry Muto, but it's got to have Antonio Brown.
As much as we want to fade Chicago, we got to probably find a way to jam in David Montgomery. We need some more flex spots for more running backs.
All right, hang on, I'll fix it.
I could also see the Boomers even going Tyler Lockett over Chris Carson. We get the double whammy of Tyler Lockett recency bias and the Boomers not trusting DK Metcalf. They say he's just a man, not a grown ass man.
Well, that's why you get Cam Akers and you get the Seattle fade.
Oh, well, I don't think you can fade Seattle with John Walford under center, though. That's the issue, right? Like that's where I think Lockett comes in or Carson comes in.
What percent chance are we giving Goff to play? Is it like
It's not
10%?
sounding good. It's not sounding good. But even if he does play, what does it matter? Right? Like, in fact, I'd actually like him more to play because I want that game to shoot out because I want no running game. I want them to force rush to throw the ball because that means like DK Metcalf and Lockett will get there. You know what I mean?
He did get limited practice in today. So actually, I'm going to say that it's looking like Goff's probably going to play. He's already practicing in a limited fashion.
All right, that's going to change some things up.
Breaking news. Go ahead, Blair.
I wonder if you're an FFPC grinder and your season ends in week 16, maybe you don't pay attention in week 17 and you don't have this Lockett recency bias. And Metcalf becomes
That's true. That might be for us DFS guys, eh?
I will tell you this, though. If you are projecting Seattle, I mean, people are scared of Jalen Ramsey, maybe rightfully so, but I don't think you're going to see that much DK Metcalf.
I like Hasan's just in here.
I laughed at that before I saw who wrote it.
This is why you should, if you listen to this on a podcast, you got to subscribe to the YouTube and join us in the live stream because you get good interactions like this.
I like Hasan's been the most entertaining person on this stream and in the chat.
Hey,
so wait, are you streaming and you're also watching on YouTube at the same time?
I had no idea how to do it the last time, and I think I figured it out. So.
Hang on. Speaking of Boomer, Blair, is your mic plugged in? It sounds like it's not.
Hold on.
You don't do this show for 1 week, and this guy falls down.
I do love that we are trying to now Boomer Galaxy Brain and figure out how the Boomer Galaxy Brain works.
Hey, Pat, will you title this Boomer after he's had a few drinks?
To bring this to a macro construction perspective, I think the 4 flex spots is what's going to throw people. And I can see people going to tight end or running back ahead of them playing a wide receiver. And like the only wide receivers I can see them jamming into the flex are Lockett, Antonio Brown, Deonte Johnson as your 3 main possible flex guys. You know what I mean? Like those are the 3 guys who I think would catch double-digit ownership in like the 20-ish plus % range. And that's where I think that you want to, if you're thinking about getting like differentiating, you want to figure out the flex spots because that's where you're going to find the most the ways to get unique from a roster construction perspective before even going into the player selection perspective. If you see what I'm talking about.
I think Metcalf will be more owned than Lockett still, and I think Godwin will be more owned than Antonio Brown. But I think Antonio Brown will be more owned than you might normally think.
Yeah, I think it'll be within like a couple of percentage points, and I'm really not willing to like 23 versus 27 or like 23 versus 26 or whatever it is. I think it's going to be like that close. Like it'll be razor close to where just you want to play the guy with the higher upside, in my opinion.
Where do you think Evans will come in?
I think he's going to come in sub 10%, like just like a knee non-contact injury,
Yeah.
Chasing Boomers is scheduled for 3 a.m. We will be talking about the best all-you-can-eat buffets, our favorite humidifiers. We will have it all on Chasing Boomers every Thursday at 3 a.m.
The 3 a.m. time slot is the most diverse time slot. It's better than our regular lineup.
Well, the thing is the Boomers go to bed at 5 after watching Price is Right, and then they're up early to catch the stream.
Yeah, we had like 6 concurrents on the last one. It was a pretty good show.
All right, so let's now start talking because I feel like there's the 3 levels, right? I was talking about this with Ben, where you have the guys, the good players on the good teams. Those are the easy plays. Then you have the secondary ancillary players on the good teams, and then you have the good players on the bad teams. And these are kind of like the 3 levels where we're now working with. So like off of the Opto, a few things start to jump out, right? Michael Thomas to Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones to Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill to Travis Kelce, Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs. Let's start going around the horn. What are some of your guys' favorite, leverage pivots off of the chalk here? Let's start down there with Gretsch.
Favorite for any team? I think, oh man. Kamara to Thomas is definitely a good one. I think Russ is a really interesting one. I think, quarterback's not really off the chalk, but it is. I mean, on the same
Russ
team.
will be really. I think he'll be like 5%.
Yeah, I think he's interesting. As far as when I'm thinking of leverage, I'm also thinking of the quarterbacks that we can get to because of Kelsey, and that makes maybe Mahomes not the optimal, even if KC makes it. There's a lot of scenarios where you can see a wild card weekend quarterback being pretty solid, especially if one can make a run. And we've talked a little bit about that David Bakhtiari injury for the Packers. I'm concerned about the Packers. I don't think they're going to make the Super Bowl. So I think because there's only one bye in the NFC, you wind up with a guaranteed 4-game team, and whether that's New Orleans or Seattle, whoever. I think Russ gives pretty good value on his ownership.
What do we do with that information of Green Bay not making a run? Because they're so hard to just fade. I mean, Adams could have a huge game, even if he gets 1. If he gets 2, you're probably going to want to have Adams. And then Aaron Jones is a really high upside pivot. So I like that call, but I don't know how to play it.
I think I like it, and I think the way you play it is via the Buccaneers, right? Like, because the Buccaneers are a 5 seed who I can see legitimately making that run, right? I actually bet the Buccaneers to win the NFC at plus 400, I think. Yeah, I think it was plus 400. So I put like a little bit of money over there just because I really genuinely think that the way this shakes up is the Buccaneers could probably handle the football team and they could probably handle the Packers. And then that's where it gets interesting. If it's Seattle, then it gets a little bit trickier. If it's like the Saints, I can see them beating the Saints, right? And then they've had to do this all on the road, which is a little bit difficult. But at the same time, this team, I think, really is the way to play it. I think the way you play it is what goes back to the Boomer Opto, is that that's where they're coming in with Brady or Antonio Brown, right? And I think that the way you get leverage off of that is probably Godwin, definitely Ronald Jones, I think, is the way you want to go with it. Like he is probably the way, like, you just differentiate your lineup regardless of what you want from like a running back perspective. You can still slot him in anywhere. And then Gronk becomes a really interesting tight end play. It doesn't matter how good or how bad he is. It's like that Robert Tonyan corollary, but he's also going to potentially get 4 games.
Blair, I'm looking at your projection here for playoff challenge. You got Tyreek Hill 46.3, Travis Kelce 47.1. Chat starting to get excited about a Tyreek Hill pivot here. Is that something you might entertain?
Yeah, that's definitely something that I think is worth looking at. He probably, you'd think, would come in below Mahomes even in terms of ownership, I would expect. So yeah, he's definitely intriguing.
Are you underwater?
Yeah, your mic still isn't connected.
Honestly, worse than before.
It's worse. It's somehow worse.
Let me try something.
Is your sound card working?
I don't know. Well, hold on.
I think Blair left his recording equipment at that coffee shop he played an acoustic set at earlier today.
I wanted to say on Tyreek, he was going to be the guy I picked for the pivot, because when you're doing these ownership projections, like when you have Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas and you project Alvin Kamara for way more ownership, it's easy to then go, wow, Michael Thomas is such a great pivot. But
wait, wow. Sorry.
You could actually be wrong about how far they are, because it just comes down to, does the field prefer Alvin Kamara or do they prefer Michael Thomas? That's, both are really good plays. It just comes down to who the field prefers. With Kansas City, it's not going to come down to who the field prefers, because if you get off of Kelsey, you're really in a tough spot where Andrews is also going to be chalky and is not nearly as an exciting a play. That also takes you off of Lamar. So if so I just think like Kelsey Lamar is gonna get some ownership. The other thing is that people are going to want to play Mahomes, and last year's winning lineup had Mahomes. Getting that quarterback in the Super Bowl is something that a lot of people like to do. So the roster construction almost forces a lot of teams to take Kelsey or Mahomes. And even people who are really excited about Tyreek are probably not going to be jamming Tyreek. So there's almost no way that Tyreek's ownership gets out of hand. And he's like basically locked in to be an awesome pivot.
And
especially with 2x Super Bowl. If if he has a monster Super Bowl, then he could easily be it.
That's all he needs, really. Just a massive monster Super Bowl.
And Vincent, this is why it's such a great pivot, because again, if we had no concerns about ownership, we all feel similarly. He's by far head and shoulders the best tight end play, but everyone else thinks that. And we are in a large field contest where you basically have to get first to be profitable in this contest. So I think you need to consider routes that don't involve Kelce. And if you are using Kelce, then you need to be willing to Galbrain in a few other spots, because Kelce is going to be massively popular on this contest.
But even then, remember last year, Kelce was the popular play, and he did not really perform. It was Mahomes who smashed. Like, you guys remember that? Like, it was like Lamar was the chalk quarterback. Kelce was the chalk tight end. And
Kittle was 77% owned. But
oh yeah, that's right. I totally forgot. Like, San Francisco was in the playoffs last year because it was a Mostert week. Yeah, it was a Mostert it's coming out party. Yep. No, yeah, I just think that like chalk tight ends don't really do it as much, right? Because we've seen teams get really weird in the playoffs, man. And that's what really makes like Hill really intriguing to me.
And I was messaging Ben and Pat earlier today too about, I think there's more of a narrative this year that the offense is condensed around Hill and Kelce, and that they're not spreading the ball around enough, and that you can just capture most of Mahomes' production via Kelce, which to me makes Hill obviously a smash play and Mahomes a smash play, because I don't know. I haven't seen anything that makes me think we couldn't go in the playoffs and see Sammy catch one, Clyde Edwards-Helaire catch a wheel route, Mecole Hardman get loose on one. Like, this isn't an offense that's going to force the ball just for the sake of forcing the ball.
And last playoffs, we saw Mahomes start using his legs, right? Like, and that's not insignificant. You know what I mean? Like, we saw him rush for like 20 plus yards for the most part, and then a handful of naked bootlegs on the ground. That's all you need out of him, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Ben, what about this pivot, Henry to AJ Brown?
I'm always down to play AJ Brown. I mean, it's tricky because one thing we talked about on Monday was Tennessee last year in their 2 playoff wins through 15 and 16 passes. Like, and this is a big thing that, as we're talking more in the week, is something to really keep in mind. And I'm trying to keep in mind is like, how do teams win? The Titans win through Henry. And so if they make a deep run, it probably is challenging for Brown to outscore Henry. But I think it is, something you can consider.
Here's a scenario that I wanted to throw by you guys, right? Like, you throw the way you see Henry not get there is a Ravens upset win in a shootout where the team has to go to Brown. It was like the regular season game with Derrick Henry. Do you remember that? Like the Brown side. That's how AJ Brown gets there.
And someone mentioned Corey Davis. So part of the reason I'm not like going nuts about AJ Brown, I have this theory on Corey Davis that he's like a couple of his big games were heavily negative game script. There was one in particular that I wrote about in Signals where he had 4 catches in the fourth quarter. They were all 10-yard curls because they were down like 3 touchdowns. It was earlier in the year. It was like week 6 or week 8 or something. And the defense is playing off, and they're also giving Brown more attention. At that point, you can just throw wide open 10-yard curls to Corey Davis. He winds up with an 8, and the fourth one was a touchdown. He winds up with 8 100 yards and a touchdown. Strong line. And he literally had like 4 for 45 and a TD in the fourth quarter on free passes, completely the same route, foreign route. And that's happened for him a couple of times. So,
and that actually lines up too. One of the surprise correlations this year is AJ Brown and Derrick Henry have been very positively correlated. Like, they crush when the Titans crush. And so I do think it's a little tricky if you're rooting for the Titans to win. I think you need to do it through Derrick Henry. Because he is going to be that engine if they get 2 games.
Yeah, I think if you're going to play Corey Davis or A.J. Brown, consider playing Lamar in those lineups because you're going to be screwed if the Titans win anyway. Yeah. So you might as well be betting on Baltimore pretty heavy.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think this is a good question, and is kind of the thing we're all trying to wrestle with. It's the game of DFS. It's everything. We're trying to get the most projected points in our lineup without being too duplicated, without being too chalky. So we have different paths to winning. So does anyone have any thoughts here? You know, we pulled out the Boomer Opto. I mean, if you just flip, you know, Michael or Kamara to Michael Thomas and Adams to Aaron Jones, is that enough? How many places do we need to get unique here?
Well, my immediate thought on this is there is no too many, and especially in the playoff contest, because teams can go one and done. Any team can lose their first game, and weird things can happen in one game. Michael Thomas last year is another guy who was chalky. He was every single game going in the playoffs, 100 yards in the touchdown, and then he had a 4 for 40 in their only playoff game. I do think I want to jump back to the Adams question earlier and how to play the Packers. Even if we expect him to lose one game, Davante Adams is such a lock for huge target volume. If I project him to lose one game, I still think he's in, because then 7 teams have lost one game. So 5 of the guys in the optimal lineup will have played one game. It's so hard for me to see Davante Adams, not being the highest scoring player on the Packers. I mean, that's a little easier. It can go either way. It can go to Jones sometimes. But more importantly, that at least one Packer isn't one of those 5 out of 7 teams that only played one game that get someone in. And I think it would probably be Adams. So I still think if you're projecting like the Packers to lose a game, you can play Adams. So it depends on the player. When you talk about like projected points, Adams is the guy that projects for so many points. I don't want to pivot off him a ton, because even if they do lose right away, and I think they could, I still think he can be in that lineup and be the one that you want. There's a lot of other pivots you can make, though, and crazy things do happen. We've been saying that, and I think there's almost, again, not too many that you can make when you're talking about other teams that are a little bit more unconcentrated, and you don't know who's going to make a run. You don't know how games can play out. Weird things happen, like Hasan was saying. The Titans throwing 15, 16 passes. That's such a low pass volume number. That type of stuff happens, man.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up the winning roster last year. This is from fantasymojo.com.
Yeah, will you zoom in on it again?
Yeah. So
there you go.
Yeah, this is the winning roster from last year, and this is the optimal. But you can see the winning roster had Alvin Kamara only played one game. So exactly to Ben's point, like that's the kind of Davante Adams type of argument in action. There aren't any crazy plays in this lineup. So I think like pivoting to a guy like Corey Davis is interesting, but I wouldn't get much more off the board than that. Like even the Rahim Mostert play, awesome play, sub 10% owned, but he was the lead running back for a very run heavy focused team. So it wasn't like a crazy play. It just happened to kind of work out that's how they just ran through teams on the way to the Super Bowl.
He also got like 60% of his production in that one game against Green Bay, right?
Right. Yeah. He had 4 touchdowns in the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
I do think, and again, obviously this isn't, fully predictive, but I think it's interesting to talk about various archetypes here. We mentioned Raheem Mostert, a guy off the radar on a run-heavy team that isn't going to be on a ton. And then DK Metcalf, the kind of rookie guy who's surging late and continues to roll there with a couple big games. I'll toss out a few names. I mean, what about J.K. Dobbins as this year's Raheem Mostert, a guy that isn't going – he's going to get overlooked because of Lamar and Andrews, maybe even Marquise Brown, but this is like a team that wants to run. He's been exploding down the stretch, and you could get 2 really good games out of him.
I love that. That's the one where you can go Dobbins, AJ Brown, and probably take Kelsey, right? Like that's kind of hot, like what you're looking at for a Kelsey roster, right? Like, those are the kind of pivots you want to make.
Yeah.
And there are going to be a lot of people on Andrews. And I think one thing I want to point out here while we have this optimal up, Andrews scored 9.9 points and was in the winning lineup. Fells was the optimal. He scored 22, whatever. No one really played him, so he doesn't win. But to the question about Travis Kelce projects so much more than any other tight end, essentially what happened here is Mahomes was so much more valuable than the next valuable quarterback that it didn't matter who you had at tight end. It literally didn't matter to get to the best lineup that was even – builds that were feasible. No one was playing Fells. And so that if that plays out that way, that's what you wind up with. You just wind up with whoever the tight end is that caught 1 touchdown maybe and scored 12 points in their one game.
Yeah, it's almost like in DFS, like if you're just playing someone at the min salary, like just throw in whatever team is almost kind of a fade for you, that might be an
option. I just pulled up Kelsey's game log from last year. I couldn't remember. He had a 10-catch, 134-yard, 3-touchdown game against Houston. He scored 4 touchdowns. He had over 200 yards, 19 catches. He had a monster playoffs, and he wasn't in the winning lineup because Mahomes was.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And circling back to this of, it's not just single projected points at a position. It's how much are other positions separating from the others. And obviously on paper, Travis Kelce projects to separate the most, but we also know tight end is extremely volatile. Like you look at Darren Fells in this Opto right here, and to me, that points to a guy like Logan Thomas, who could catch 10 balls and find the end zone and score, as many points as the winning roster and the Opto combined in one fucking game.
And no one's going to want to play him because they don't think he can play a second game. To get back to the earlier point. Like, they don't think Washington can advance, so they want to look for maybe Jared Cook is more appealing to a lot of people or whoever if they want to pivot somewhere because they're like, I might get multiple games out of this tight end.
Yeah, the only issue with, Darren Fells was direct off of the Hopkins chalk. Hopkins was super chalky, and so you were taking a guy. Most people were drafting a Houston player. You just took a different one. The trouble with Logan Thomas, and I think Logan Thomas is a really interesting play, but you're having to pick Washington, which most teams will want to fade, and then you end up having to fade, a team that you're more excited about playing a skill position player, maybe like the Colts or something like that, which might actually be a smart play because Jonathan Taylor is likely to be really, really chalky, and that gets you off of him.
And this was a thing too I was talking about with Gretsch earlier, is this idea of you look at this winning roster and there aren't a lot of galaxy brain plays. And it's, again, similar to DFS. What is the chalk we want to fade? It's overconfidence in the lower probability plays. It's the 3K chalk wide receiver. That's the one you want to fade. So if Jonathan Taylor or Nick Chubb, these guys that aren't actually, projected to play that many games, if they're going to be the chalk, to me, those are the immediate pivot points I'm looking at.
Chubb is a guy who you can also get scripted out in favor of Hunt, especially because Cleveland, with COVID issues, going on the road to Pittsburgh, who have a strong run defense, you can see people come. At what? I guess let me rephrase the question. At what percentage do you think Chubb is a really strong fade for you?
I think. If
you beat me to the joke, okay?
I said 5%.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, that's pretty much what I'm thinking.
If he was sub 20%, I would be pretty interested in that.
Sure,
but I don't think there's really any chance he will be.
I think he's coming in at 40+, man.
I don't think he will because I don't think people are gonna want to take a Brown. I think you're gonna see some Browns D. I think you're gonna see Cody Parkey. I think you're gonna see outright fade. This whole COVID situation and everything, people are going to be picking the Steelers.
I do think that they're like, I think the Browns are probably the easiest fade, which also makes me very interested in an Austin Hooper lineup.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, it's good.
Which actually, he's a pretty similar pivot to Darren Fells in that, there's going to be a lot of people on Chubb. You just move over to the tight end.
Yeah, and more so, I think it's easier to see a path where the Browns upset the Steelers than, say, Washington upsetting the Bucs with the Logan Thomas play. The Logan Thomas play is more you're hoping for one game of monster production. The Hooper play could be 2 games of moderate production that gets you there.
The nice thing about the Hooper play, too, is if they win, they go to KC, so that sets them up for passing.
Yeah.
And probably really negative game script kind of dump off stuff at the end where that could be perfect for Hooper.
Pete, you mentioned looking at this, you mentioned J.K. Dobbins as a Mostert comp. And
Yep.
It looks like almost like you could do the exact same build as the winning roster last year and get it similarly. Like one of the things you were just saying is good players going low owned. Like this year's DK Metcalf, 18%, probably somebody like Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
You can get guys like Alvin Kamara. I guess this time it might be Michael Thomas. You might flip it the other way at like 20%, even though they're amazing, because the other one on his team just looks better. And you could play Mahomes at a similarly low percentage. The thing is, the Andrews wasn't a great play. If it was Dobbins who did the Mostert run, then you would pretty easily see a scenario where a team, again, if it wasn't a Kelsey lineup, if it was a Mahomes lineup, you can go to one of those other tight ends. You can have that's one way you could play Dobbins. You could go to Kelsey, like Hasan said, but you can get pretty close to this 2019 winning roster and go to an even lower tight end, which I don't think a lot of people are going to want to do. There's going to be a lot of ownership on Kelsey and Andrews.
And it's the same thing in DFS. There's so much value to just getting on a slightly different construction. My buddy Eric Beimford always calls it like flipping the build. If everyone is, paying up for wide receivers, well, maybe you pay up for running backs or vice versa. And I feel like that's very applicable here where you're not actually sacrificing that many projected points. You're just flipping the chalk build.
Yep. Well, so we've talked about Tom Brady is a chalky quarterback. I definitely think he'll be chalky. People are going to want to play some Mahomes, but Kelsey kind of boxes you out from playing too much. What's the other chalk at quarterback, and who do you think the most owned quarterback will be?
That's a tough question. I want to say it's probably going to be Josh Allen. I think the second most owned quarterback is going to be Josh Allen.
Second behind Brady.
Yeah. Because he's got the rushing floor. He's got the ability to bootleg it into the end zone. It's a way to keep getting that Diggs production, but now you're also getting John Brown production and Cole Beasley production and Dawson Knox production. And then you're also getting a guy who could potentially play 4 games. So I think that's who's going to be the second most popular quarterback behind Brady, ahead of Mahomes.
Yeah. I do think it's hard to get off of Diggs, but Josh Allen makes it easy. We've seen how much that offense wants to pass. We've seen him spread it around in the red zone. We've seen in previous years too, where people fall in love with the idea of, do I get 4 ceiling games from a single quarterback? And Josh Allen has the clearest path to do that in this contest this year, maybe short of Lamar and Russ, I guess would be the other ones. But I still think Josh Allen, people will be okay coming off of Diggs for Josh Allen.
He's also got that potential one and done, like just kicked in the teeth by the Colts first game feeling too. You know what I mean?
I think
it could happen.
Potentially Allen could come in even higher owned than Brady. I mean, you would have to project Diggs for like 70 or 80% ownership, which he might get to, but I think it's probably closer to like a 50-50, 60-40 split. So, I mean, seeing Allen at like 40% ownership, I don't think would be crazy.
That's what I'm struggling with, because right now I have him at like 26% or something, and I like Allen at that. But if he does come in at,
do the boomers like Diggs?
Yeah.
Everyone likes Diggs.
Yeah, I mean, after he crushes, like anyone likes Diggs.
And that's where I'm almost on the opposite. I have a hard time. Like, I know Diggs can rack up nice PPR days, even in losing games. But like for me, if the Bills roll, I want Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Well, one thing when you look, if you go back to the optimal and the winning lineup from last year, you look at the positions where you actually had players playing 3 games. It was just quarterback and running back, and you can win and even have an optimal lineup with a wide receiver or a tight end who only plays 1 game. So I think it could pay to find these guys who you think can play at least 3 games and get them at quarterback and running back.
And this is going to be different. And this is, the point of kind of trying to drive home. But when we look at this, when it's done this year, there's going to be 2 more roster spots, right? And both of those roster spots are going to be 1-game teams. So instead of 3 1-game teams, there's going to be 5 1-game teams. So that is just something to consider as you're building. The Kamara point that Pete made, that a good player on a one-and-done team, it's even more likely that we'll see those good players on one-and-done teams get in if they put up a decent enough score.
Yeah, and I think, that Dan's pointing out, obviously, you're going to have 2 positional players who play only 1 game, and I think this is where the strategy is interesting, because most people gravitate to the soft fade at the kicker and defense position. And so you're capping your ceiling with the one-and-done plays that you're projecting for your own bracket, where we're kind of saying maybe you can actually attack a one-and-done ceiling spot, get in, get out,
It is only 2. I just said 5. It's 4. I'm counting the Packers as a one and done team already in my head.
No, and I think that's a great point. I should have looked this up before the show. There was into 2018 playoffs. There was a shootout, I think, with Dallas and whoever they played.
Seattle,
yeah. So you were able to play Amari in that game.
Amari.
Yep, and that was an awesome spot. You just attacked it, and you just got a ton of points out of playing that as a shootout. And there's only going to be so many awesome games in this playoffs. So if you can correctly identify one of those awesome games and get both sides of it, I think that'll be a big advantage.
There was the one way back when. Do you remember the? This is probably before we even played the playoff contest.
You're going to say Chiefs Colts, aren't you?
No, I was going to say when Calvin Johnson and the Lions played the Saints, and Calvin went absolutely off in a losing game like that. I mean, if the Bills get upset, like those are one of those scenarios where like the Allen teams flame out because they're not getting 4 games from a quarterback, but your Diggs team, if he goes for 158 catches and a touchdown in a shootout, like you'll be happy with that score.
This is where Hooper becomes interesting to me, right? Because he's a tight end. He's also the one of the primary receiving options for the Browns. Rashard Higgins was just got drag racing in Westlake in Cleveland. So the Browns are like they're an interesting fade candidate, but they're also an interesting one where you put Austin Hooper in and then just sort of pray that the Steelers get up big enough to where they're like, all right, we're just going to let Austin Hooper beat us. And Hooper racks up like a 30-point game or whatever. And that's like, pretty impressive from a one tight end spot, and it lets you get unique elsewhere. And you can also probably correlate that with a Steelers receiver, as a way to just sort of get leverage over there. And like you can treat your hard fades as to other teams if you wanted to, you know what I mean? Instead of taking the projected most popular hard fade that is Cleveland right now.
Blair, you are known for your gal brain plays. What's your favorite Galaxy Brain play for this contest right now?
Well, I don't know how Galaxy Brain this is. Gretsch kind of started to mention, not this play. This is going to sound gross, but I think with the Kamara chalk and them potentially getting 4 games, it might pay to play Breeze in some lineups. And, he has not looked good, but that's going to be another factor that keeps ownership down on him. So I don't feel great about it, but he's someone who it's like I could see him just having enough games, throwing a few touchdowns. He might be in the winning lineup.
Pat, I would guess you have him at like sub 2-3% ownership right now.
He's just talking Taysom Hill in ownership projections.
Yeah, I gotta. Well, while we're on gross quarterback plays, what about Ryan Tannehill?
I actually love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And
I'm drafting him in a snake draft, a 14-team snake draft where I got Kelsey near the top. I took Tannehill.
Hang on. I don't want to just I want to talk about Blair's real quick here with Breeze, because I've been doing a ton of the best ball drafts on Underdog, and I've actually been drafting a lot of Breeze just because he's easy to get, but there's no opportunity cost. Like I'm pairing him with Kamara and Michael Thomas. I think here it's really hard with the opportunity cost there, the kind of work he's going to lose to Taysom Hill at the goal line. Even I would prefer to go to Jared Cook too in some scenarios as like a one and done guy who could sneak out a few touchdown games. So it's tough to stomach, but like I get it. They're going to play 2 home games as favorites. And so
yeah. It's hard to see them making a run though, and Kamara not just smashing and not outscoring Breeze by a lot. So that's the thing that kind of makes you rethink that. I think for a one and done play, Jared Cook makes a lot of sense. I'm even a little bit tempted by Traquan Smith. There's Galaxy Brain.
I was about to go refill my drink, and then Blair mentioned
Traquan Smith.
Oh, Traquan. Oh, I thought he said Alex. Yeah. That's even. That's still Galaxy.
Marquez Callaway probably. No, I mean I think Michael Thomas is not going to catch enough ownership, because we just saw this, man. like a year and a half ago, I got it. Like we were in this conversation that was right back to where we started. Time is a flat circle, right? Michael Thomas versus Devontae Adams. We're back in this discussion 2 years later, right? And like I know, Ben, you were mentioning a lot about how Michael Thomas and Breeze just haven't looked good. There's a lot of under the surface stuff, but it's the playoffs now, right? This like the Saints, man, like to say they shit the bed last year is like really being generous to what the Saints really did, right? Like they got disrespected in the Superdome by Dalvin Cook, and Michael Thomas was their leading receiver, and he had like 4 for 40. Like, I really think that Michael Thomas is not going to come in above 20%. I really see him coming in at like 15% because people haven't seen him. Like, I can see them just being hesitant because they want to jam in Kamara. Kamara projects so much better. He's got all like that target reception floor, the rushing floor. He just came off that 6 touchdown game. I really think that like Michael Thomas, like we're coming in at what, Pat, with 20%, 23% ownership on MT?
Yeah, I'll pull it up. I think I'm in the mid-20s on MT because I have Kamara at 69%.
Yeah, if I had to take the under there, I would be like we're not even projecting ownership.
I'm at 23.
Yeah, I'm lower than you because we're not projecting ownership on Manny Sanders here. And I think Sanders is going to catch some ownership because of his recent play.
I don't know. I don't think Sanders will catch a ton. I mean, maybe like 1%, but
3 to 4.
I don't think. I mean, people don't want to get too off the rails here with. It's like you're already getting pretty.
Super nice way of telling Hasan he's an idiot. Like, I don't think he'll get too much ownership. Maybe like 1%.
But the thing is
though, would it be that crazy to see Kamara at like 80, 85%?
Yeah.
No, I don't think that would be crazy. I mean, Kittle really surprised me last year coming in at 77. I thought he'd be like 65.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would be crazy either, but I think the conversation you have to have is if that happens, Michael Thomas is just flashing red lights. Like you are truly galaxy braining if you're going to, Sanders at 1% when you can get Michael Thomas at 15%, and the projected points gap there is just absolutely massive. So
No, that's a great point. Sorry to cut it off.
No,
how likely do we think it is that Thomas outscores Kamara? I mean, I guess we have to assume health, but it's definitely going to be more likely than the ownership gap, right? Like, I almost feel like it's close to 50-50.
But it's never going to – yeah, it is, but it's not going to it rarely happens in Michael Thomas's favor because Kamara's is such a target magnet, right? But like it's also explained in the discrepancy when you're going back to like best ball ADP drafts. Kamara went 104, 103, 102, 101. MT was your locked in 105, 106. Right. And like the discrepancy there being you're saying that you can get enough points out without burning an RB roster spot on a Kamara. You can get contrarian there, right? You could probably put Big Dog in, and then you can get contrarian. You could put Rojo, you could put Dobbins, you could put anyone else there, and then find a way to get unique in those 4 flex spots. It goes back to a point that we were discussing way earlier. What do you like? I think what you decide to do with those 4 flex spots determines the shape of your roster, and like determines the macro shape of this roster relative to the field. Because I think those 4 flex spots, if you go running back, wide receiver, tight end, that's probably what I think is going to be the most likely use of those 4 flexes. So if you go something like 3 wide receivers and a running back there, you're already going to be getting more unique than the field, I think, right? And that's where I think that's where the ownership game is going to be played.
Maybe we should just crank it purple.
Yeah, that was a question that I had.
Just all tight ends, all the way down to the flex box.
Eric Ebron is a really good. I think I've got Eric Ebron projected for 1 percentage point lower than Juju and Chase Claypool, who I both have very low.
Is this Pat Walters right here?
Yeah, well, I wanted to pull this up because I think this is an interesting way to look at it. The rushing props for the playoffs, just to show that there's not a ton of running backs that I think people are going to be all that excited to play.
Dobbins.
Like the potential for Alvin Kamara's ownership to get a little bit nutty is pretty high because, Hasan, you just put it like burning a roster spot on a running back, but that's not how a lot of people think about it. They're like, I need to get my running back spot locked in with the optimal play, and then I'll figure out what to do after that. So I think people are going to have a really hard time getting off of Kamara, because then you're looking at Henry, who might only play one game. We already talked about how Ronald Jones isn't that popular.
Did you just bring this up because Rojo's tied for the second highest odds?
No, I wouldn't. Ben. That's I mean, Rojo is pretty strong, almost favorite to lead the rushing. But,
yeah, but go to the receiving yards.
No, hang on, that's broken for me for some reason. It doesn't. But anyway, I mean, like Dobbins takes you off of Andrews, Jones takes you off of Adams. And I think that's going to be harder to stomach than playing Kamara over MT. So I think you'll see a lot of Kamara. The field kind of pushes you to Kamara in some of the same ways that the field pushes you to Kelsey.
Looking at the Rotoviz strength of schedule tool, it looks like there's actually value to be had in Jonathan Taylor, and I'm going to bet it right now.
All right, there you go.
There you go. Live on air. I mean, Pat's already staked his life on it, so a mortgage is nothing.
Yeah, what's a mortgage at this point?
Yeah. We will finish up with this. A couple more points we want to hit, but we can definitely build a lineup here that tells just a beautiful narrative. This is a good question here, just for kind of how you would play your own portfolio here. Jacob asking, if you make 5 lineups, would you make a playoff bracket and have 5 different lineups around one playoff scenario? Or would you make it totally random, maybe, identifying a few leverage plays you like and then building around that core? Let's go around the horn. Pat, how would you prefer to build a 5 lineup portfolio?
I'd probably make like at least 2, probably 3 playoff bracket scenarios. And then I might, within those, play like 2 from. So if I made 3, maybe, I've got 2 lineups from one bracket scenario, 2 lineups from another, and then the last one from a different bracket scenario. So I'm a little bit, mixing it up in how I could see the playoffs play out. I mean, I'm sure you can, you have different thoughts about how the playoffs might play out. I don't think you want to lock yourself into just one if you're playing 5 lineups.
I know for me personally, if I was making 5, just the way I think, I would probably identify a few of those leverage spots I want to make. Say I want to be heavy on J.K. Dobbins, something like that. Maybe I want to play a one-off Logan Thomas or whatever, and then build around that. And then if my lineup looks too chalky, okay, I'm going to pivot a Kamara to a Michael Thomas. I'm going to pivot an Adams to an Aaron Jones and kind of work that way. Does anyone have any other way they would attack it with 5 lineups?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talk about making your lineups tell a story. And what I might try to do is figure out what stories I kind of believe about the playoffs that are going to be not that popular. What stories do I believe that could play out that not a lot of people will be on? And I might just take like the 5 most compelling of those and make 5 different lineups based on different scenarios. Like if I think Washington upsets Tampa Bay, then how do you build a lineup around that? Something like that.
Yeah, and just to go with, even if you go with just the one bracket, let's say you've got the one scenario that you're like, this is the one, right? There's still plenty of leverage spots and plenty of teams with very, very good fantasy players that you can just get leverage on, right? Like, let's just say, I'm just going to assume, like right here, you're going with chalk, right? On the Packers, we've already discussed how Devontae is a smash. That just means you're going to want to play Adam Jones if you want to get unique there, right? We've already discussed how no one's going to be on the Chiefs or on Mahomes or Hill as much. We haven't discussed the Steelers, but there's plenty of Steelers wide receivers and receivers in general not named Deonte Johnson. You could play in there and just get unique just by doing that.
Yeah.
But you can do the same thing with the Buccaneers by playing Ronald Jones. I genuinely think he's going to come in very low. You can play Gronk. You can play Chris Godwin if you have the spine to do that. With the Seahawks, you can play Russ, right? Like, even if you're going with just the one base chalk bracket, you can still find the same level of expected points by just saying, I'm not going to play a Kelsey. I'm not playing Mark Andrews. I'm not playing this guy. And then you're getting like unique in 3 or 4 spots. And you can eat the chalk wherever you want. You just literally play whoever you want.
Pete?
Play
You can
whoever
do
you
it.
want. Play whoever you want. Let's answer a couple of these other specific questions. Dan wants to know, Pat, what's your ownership projection on A-Rob?
I have him at 12% right now. And yeah, I think the Bears are pretty interesting. They're not going to be a popular play. A lot of people are going to fade them. I think you'll see David Montgomery more owned than Allen Robinson.
Oh, for sure.
But not massively owned. Like last year, you saw Dalvin Cook owned right around the low 20s. And then we had Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill. Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, I believe, off the top of my head, it was like 6 and 3 or something. So I might be a little bit too high on Allen Robinson. I would say his range is probably like, 7 to 15. But I think the Bears are kind of interesting because as one-off plays, you'll be able to get a little bit unique just by playing them. And if that game ends up being higher scoring than people think, you can that pick could pay off for you without the Bears even winning.
Yeah, and I also think you have a little equity there. I personally find the Saints to be a bit paper tigerish this year. So if you can actually sneak out 2 games there too of A-Rob or David Montgomery, I think you're really cooking.
I think in 2018, A-Rob was in the optimal or in the winning lineup, even though Chicago lost in the first round. So that kind of scenario where they only play 1 game, but A-Rob smashes is there's some precedent for that.
Let's do this question here too. If you're playing Tannehill or you play big wide receivers on his path to the Super Bowl and then running backs from the NFC, I don't know if the position stuff matters, right?
No. You're just saying that I want him at like 2% ownership, and he's going to play 4 games, and I just want those points, and it's going to make me get a unique lineup everywhere else. The second you move,
You can pretty much
dog.
Yeah. Well, you can pretty much jam whatever you want if you're playing Tannehill.
Yeah, but are you playing for the Titans to make a run? And in that case, are you hoping that they are in a lot of shootouts where his opposing wide receivers have big games, right?
Right. One way that I think Tannehill's interesting is that if you play Tannehill with a Browns win script, right? Because then the Browns go to KC, Tannehill goes to Buffalo. I mean, that game could be massive. So now you've got pieces of that game. Then, yeah, you bring Diggs back on that. Maybe you brought Marquise Brown back in the first round from Tannehill. Then you get Tannehill blow up spot with the Bills. Then maybe he goes to KC for a third blow up spot. At that point, who cares if he even wins that game?
The last time the Titans played the Bills was this year. And you guys, anyone want to guess the winning scores?
It was what the score was in the game this year in the regular season.
Yeah,
It was very high scoring.
Yeah, and all of it on the Titans side. Like the Bills scored 16 points, the Titans scored 42.
Oh, that's right. That was like early in the year, wasn't it?
Yeah, they curb stomped them.
That's when the Titans came out of their they were like the first COVID team, and they came out of it and won anyway.
Dude, yeah, I'm like Allen had a good game, but like he turned the ball over enough to where I'm just not going to do it.
Real quick, does my audio sound bad to you guys?
It was for a minute, but you're better.
Yeah, you were breaking up a bit, but you're good.
Oh, weird. Okay. Yeah, what was I lost my train of thought. Should we build a lineup here?
Yeah, let's go it.
Do it.
All right. I am going to put this into the $35. This lineup is called.
Oh, well, we should say we had a bunch of bets that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
want to cover this?
Catch people up on that.
Well, we bet Hasan and I had a bet of Kareem Hunt versus Cam Akers for the season. Points per game, minimum 8 games. So I won that one. And I started with that because I lost the other 2. The other 2 were me and Hasan, Jarvis Landry versus Tyler Boyd. I believe total points. And yeah, Tyler Boyd won that. And then I lost to Blair with this bet won a lot of money for both of us. Jalen Reagor versus Henry Ruggs. Yeah, so I owe Blair. So I owe 2 football guys teams, and Hasan owes 1.
Well, all right. Well, this one's on me. This is divided between the Ship Chasing Live crew and the 35 here. But yes, let's. Man, I would have loved to have had Boyd on our team instead of Landry, Pat, but you didn't let me.
You wanted Landry. I was trying to get Will Fuller.
Get out of here.
Here's an early best ball 2021. Tyler Boyd's going to be again yet another value in the 8th round.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. This lineup is going to tell a story. We are going to start with Hasan. We're going to go to Blair. Then we're going to go to Ben.
Are we entering this?
Oh,
We're
I
putting
just
this
did.
in?
Yeah, I'm putting this
All right,
in. This
guys.
is for all of us. Yeah.
Guys, please don't dupe us, bro.
Yeah, please don't do this, bros. We're begging you. All right, Hasan.
This lineup's going to be so galaxy brain that no one would want to.
People are gonna they're gonna be so disgusted, and then they're gonna look at us in the top of leaderboards and just say we should have done this. All right. Oh man, why are you giving me the first pick? This is like really, really stressful.
Because you are the developer of the Boomer Opto. You deserve this.
Juju Smith-Schuster, put it on the board.
What? Okay, wow. We are.
Fuck. We're off and running.
Couldn't you pick Claypool at least?
Anytime I can get the 4th lowest upside receiver on his own team.
Oh my god.
Remember when we were worried about getting duped?
We will not get
We're
Claypool.
done.
All right, Blair, here we go. Traquan Smith, what do you got for us?
Oh, man. Well, I actually had a thought in mind, and Hasan's pick makes this even more tempting.
Oh,
If you're
God.
playing for
Just do it.
Smith-Schuster to have a big game, maybe in a loss, and you think the Browns could make a run, maybe you go Baker Mayfield at
Oh my
quarterback.
god.
Oh my god!
Guys, I offered to spend $35 of my hard-earned money on this lineup.
Why do you hate Pete so much?
All right, forget it.
Pete, luckily, Pete had a really good DFS season because he's burning $35 here tonight.
But I got a better idea. I got a better idea.
I thought you were going to go like Rashard Higgins or something. And I was going to be like, all right, they're Juju and him.
Rashard Higgins is not gonna play. He's gonna be in jail. On jail.
Oh my
Quarterback is maybe too important. Let me think.
Yeah.
No,
If the
just
Browns
do
win
Do it,
and they
Blair.
face Kansas City, what's that?
Just do it.
You can put Mayfield in, sure.
No, don't do that.
No.
All right, don't do it. My other pick is if the Browns win and they go to KC, KC is gonna run all over them, and we want Edwards-Helaire.
But we don't have a Brown.
You could probably play.
Yeah, we'll get one later.
God damn it.
No, but guys, I gotta reel you back in. We were just talking about how you can get Mahomes or Tyreek.
Play Mahomes.
Once we get one Galaxy Brain play. I'm gonna make you guys decide between Juju and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I actually think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a pretty interesting Galaxy Brain play because we've seen the Kansas City running back smash 2 years in a row. It wasn't in the winning lineup last year, but it's
I
at
would like to
least
say DJ
plausible.
Moore. That's going to be my Galaxy Brave.
All right, good pick.
I could actually probably explain Juju a little bit if you guys
Go ahead.
like care about it, but like realistically, it's mostly so because like he's actually been a lot better than people think he has been in the last few weeks. He's been at least a wide receiver 2 or better in most of his games this season. He's been a wide receiver 1 or better in only 3, which is sort of where it comes in. He's got a fairly narrow range of outcomes that go between like the 18 plus to the 22 plus. He doesn't have this like outside ceiling, but a lot of it comes from these forced targets to Deonte Johnson. Deonte Johnson gets all these like short, shallow targets, but we've also seen the team just bench him outright, right? Like I think that the team can like I think that in terms of keeping a game close or in terms of like shootouts, the team has no compunction about actually going back to Juju Smith-Schuster as their primary receiver, and they've done that in games where they've needed to win. And I do think that the Steelers will be using Juju quite a bit more, and I think that his ownership if you guys are as pessimistic on him, even relative to Chase Claypool, I think he comes in at if he comes in sub 5%, he's a phenomenal player.
He will.
Yeah.
He will. I have him at 6%. I'm lowering him to 2, realizing how gross I feel about it.
Here's my issue, and I'm trying to work on this as I work back. But how many games Juju has been better than people realize, but he's good when they have to throw a lot. How many games is he actually their highest scoring receiver? And I found 2 in the final about 10 games of the season. He's had good games, but when he has good games, one of the other guys has a better game almost every time.
And this is because, and the other guy you're going to find is probably going to be Deonte, right?
Or Claypool was better in week 17. Juju was 665 in a TD. Claypool had 5105 in a TD. Juju was their best receiver in week 16 against the Colts. But and yeah, he's closed with a couple good games. But there's several other games when I was clicking through them just now where Juju scored and still wasn't their highest scoring receiver.
Hasan, are you going to fight Dave?
You don't spend all day slaving over a boomer Opto without having a little
I think Hasan, you have the boomer mindset now.
Is this guy living in Australia? Because I swear to God, Australians are not welcomed around here.
What? What?
He looks like every other stereotypical Australian.
What is going on?
Nation of savages.
What?
From the man who brought you the Iron Curtain comes Australia, a nation of savages. What is going on? We just started this lineup with a Juju Smith-Schuster, false start to Baker Mayfield, false start to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Blair, rein us in.
All right. Actually, I think this is a good spot to get Mahomes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
We're back.
Jesus.
We're back on the right track. Oh, God. Ben Gretch.
I'll take Hooper. If we're not playing Kelsey, I think Mahomes Andrews is probably one of the most suboptimal lineup combinations you can start with because they're both going to be popular, particularly, or not super popular, but particularly when you play Mahomes, you're going to see a lot of people play Andrews with that. And he clearly projects as the second best tight end. But there's a list of other potential tight ends that I think when you consider the sum of them, one of them could be just as easy as Andrews. You kind of have to make your pick. This team is thinking about a Cleveland win and then trailing against KC, throwing a lot probably in both games because the Steelers kind of force you to throw a little bit. I think it's a good fit in this lineup.
All right, Pat.
I think I know who you're going to pick. I'm gonna go with Cam Akers.
Jesus Christ.
So here's the reason I like Cam Akers.
I'd like to see your guys' decisions if your money was on the line.
I think Cam Akers is a good play.
You all know this lineup already it has one too many Galaxy Brain plays from what we need.
Wait, why is Cam Akers a Galaxy Brain play?
Because I think they are set up to lose in round one.
Everyone thinks that.
And I think Cam Akers is going to lose pass work to Malcolm Brown in a negative game script with John Wolford behind center.
Yeah, but
also there's only one Galaxy Brain play in this lineup.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got Mahomes.
All right, whatever. Fuck it. I'll just
We've
play.
also got, with Cam Akers, you're going to have a ton of people jamming the LA defense. And if we just heard Goff is looking like he might play, then I think that helps Akers quite a lot. One, it's probably going to move some of the ownership over to guys like Bobby Trees, but also, it just gives him a better chance of advancing. And so he should come in as like a discount Jonathan Taylor, who's probably got a better chance of playing 2 games. And I think, will come in with lower ownership.
All right.
So screw you, Pete.
All right, here we go. Let's do I'll do Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
All right, back to Hasan. Please don't say anything about the continent of Australia.
Do you guys want to ride a wide receiver or running back here?
Hasan, this is up to you. With great power comes great responsibility.
I think you should pick our kicker.
Ronald Jones, actually.
All right.
This is not going to be chalky, but they're not terrible plays.
Well, this is a bigger.
Well, if you
right?
want, I actually don't mind going. I actually also don't mind playing the big dog if you guys would.
Not
I don't
talking
know
about Ronald Jones.
Yeah,
We can pretty much fill this lineup with the big dog, Diggs, Adams, and like a bunch of chalk. And
Look, I get it. It's fun to come on this show. Massive following. You know, you get to tout your fancy plays.
1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah, 1,000. This is like when you know, a little kid does show and tell, you know, and he's like doing his magic tricks and stuff. And it's like, all right, relax, guys. Let's just put in some good plays.
Literally every single play in this is an awesome play except for Juju.
I'm telling you, Juju's gonna probably like smash this weekend.
No,
Whatever.
just play Claypool, dude. I might side enter this exact lineup with.
I
Claypool.
hate you.
Yeah.
Pat,
Actually, if you guys do want to like pivot off to Claypool, I don't mind it.
Can we pivot off to Claypool? I would be so happy if we can pivot off to Claypool. There was a narrative in here.
I'd vote for Claypool.
I vote
If
for
you guys
Claypool.
want to go, yeah.
Hasan has been outvoted 4-1 for Claypool.
all right.
Yeah, Juju is destined to score like 50 points.
Yeah.
Levitan mentioned this narrative last night. He had limited snaps because they didn't want him to hit the rookie wall, and now they're going to unleash him for the playoffs. Now that sounds like a bullshit narrative, and it probably is. But if it's not, he's going to smash.
Does anybody want to
have
offer
100 yards in a TD in week 17?
Yeah.
So, and we know the guy has the big playability, particularly if we're saying that Pittsburgh is going to lose, he's the guy that can have the one ceiling, game.
Even if they need to keep throwing to win, we just know that we don't want to play Deonte Johnson. We just want to play one or the other, right?
Yes.
Who put Rojo in? Was that you, Blair?
That was me.
No.
Okay, so it's now to Blair.
Yeah, so we can't play a Mahomes-Andrews lineup. We can't play Lamar with Mahomes in there. So I say we need to get Dobbins in this lineup.
All right.
Nice.
Getting high tea, but
Nice. We're fading Henry.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't
That
like
was a gift. That was a gift to Ben right there.
I don't like not having 4 wide receivers in the flex spots.
You're saying I got to play AJ Brown now.
I'm saying he set you up perfectly for AJ Brown.
The question is,
Or even Big Dog, yeah.
we're low on flexes. Are we full fading the Packers? We have not played a Bill. We have to play, like you could play
I'm
the
picking a
Titans.
Kara DSC in my next round.
Well,
so.
we should full fade, or we're somehow fading the Seahawks.
I don't
Because-
think AJ Brown necessarily makes sense if Dobbins is hitting. Like it's like Titans got beat bad, kind of. Not for sure, but I just want to play Diggs. I want to play Diggs in this lineup. It's
Diggs.
fast enough. Diggs is my favorite play in the entire tournament, and I
Yeah.
understand that he's chalky, but
We can eat chalk,
we
guys.
can eat some
We
chalk.
can eat chalk, yeah.
he's so I don't need to explain it, but they're so early down heavy pass rate that even if they go one and done, they're not going to go one and done in a way where they ran a bunch and you had to worry about there not being pass volume. I think Diggs can be the optimal in a 1 game or in a 3+ game. Although if you get all the way to the Super Bowl, you're probably talking Allen.
Yeah. All right, Pat.
Well, Pete, as you know, we recently rebranded the show, Blankenship Chasing. So I'll throw in Blankenship.
Yes, I had messaged Pat today and I was like, we did this whole bit called Kicker Chasing and we didn't name it Blankenship Chasing. Like, what the hell are we doing? I lost like an hour of my day lamenting this awful decision. So henceforth, the 3 a.m. Kicker Chasing show will be rebranded as Blankenship Chasing. It will continue to run concurrent with Boomer Chasing, but we got to appeal to all of our demographics here. All right, it's to me. I'm gonna eat some chalk. Let's get Devontae Adams in here.
Yeah.
Sweet now.
All right, we're back to Hasan. With great power comes great responsibility.
I'm actually probably going to go with the DST here, and I'm trying to just figure out, do you guys want to ride which team are we trying to figure out which of our
What teams? Yeah, what teams do we have left here?
Seattle is not chosen, but we have Akers, so we're kind of saying Seattle lost.
Right.
or so are we hard fading or soft fading? Because like I was gonna ask if you guys
Tennessee.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Tennessee. We haven't played a Tennessee
We
player
have a
yet.
Tennessee team, a Seattle team, Washington, and the Bears. I think
Washington and the Bears. Okay.
So I actually would rather play a skill player from either Seattle or Tennessee in this lineup because I think we can afford to eat that. So like, which of the defenses do you guys want to put in here?
I think Seattle we should full fade or
Full fade?
maybe play the defense, but I think just full fade Seattle with Akers.
I don't like defense against a running back.
Yeah, I agree. So would you rather play? Which I mean, that kind of is a bit difficult because we've got Washington.
We also have Rojo.
Would you want to play Chicago then? Chicago is the DST?
No, that also feels bad.
Right.
What?
Like,
we're fading Kamara, and we got Thomas in there, so that's almost kind of playing for Chicago to upset New Orleans.
It's funny. We have Dobbins too, so we have. Sorry. You're saying
Chicago's the play.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
Chicago D. Yeah,
every other one of the available
or maybe
Ds
Montgomery in the flex. I don't know.
God no.
That's
because
too crazy.
we have Dobbins, we have every other available D playing one of against.
We could go A-Rob in the flex.
And then
but then you get the defenses versus the running backs, and that's really not what you want.
So
If anything, you want the defense.
You go Washington and hope they get to Brady a couple times.
I'm thinking with Ronald Jones in, we might want to play for Washington to. Well,
Get their ass kicked.
No, because I feel like Rojo is one of the more game script dependent running backs you're going to play.
Yep.
I think you could maybe do
is that
Seattle.
A game? Is that a game where McLaurin could play well with a Rojo smash?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
More or less, yeah.
So what are we setting up McLaurin Chicago D?
Then we're full fading the Titans.
That's interesting.
We want to full fade the Seahawks.
Yeah, to come back to the Seahawks D, you really want your defense to lose round one, and Akers has been a 3-down guy, so he's the least game script dependent probably of. I mean, certainly way less game script dependent than Rojo
and Dobbins, yeah,
and Dobbins.
I mean, honestly, if you remove Akers, play the big dog or whatever, it gets interesting. But which is why I'm asking about the defense with Chicago. Out of curiosity, do you want to play for the fact that New Orleans wins and they get a couple of picks?
As someone whose hard-earned cash is on the line here, I would love ejecting from the Akers play.
I never got to explain that. Why is it not a Galaxy play, Pat? What was your take?
Well, my take is that they have a better chance of advancing, particularly if we think Goff's playing, than Jonathan Taylor and the Colts, who are going to be way over-owned. You're leveraging off of the defense, which is going to be really, really high-owned because everyone thinks they're going to lose. And all we need to have happen is that they win a game. Because if they win a game, it's going to be through Akers. They're going to want to run the shit out of the ball. We might get. I mean, it's basically the Derrick Henry play from last year, where everyone's, like, or at least guys like us don't feel comfortable playing the running back because they're going to lose anyway. But if they don't, it's going to be because the running back smashed.
It's a good point. Goff's hurt. It would be through Akers.
Yeah, but let me just put it to you, like, on the other side of the ball is Russ Wilson, and the Seahawks love to run the football. So in a high variance game, how often does Goff really beat Russ Wilson, right? Like, how often does this Rams team beat the Seahawks at home? And I just don't know, like to me, like that simulation.
Seattle keeps, especially since they went away from letting Russ cook, they keep everyone in games. Like, it can happen. The Rams can win this game for sure.
Yeah, they actually won earlier this year at home.
Yeah, they beat them this year. I know but that's what we were talking about this earlier. You want to fade false confidence. The Seattle's favored by 5. They're not favored by 8 or 9. They're
a book.
I kind of dig it. But Pat, you were insinuating to me that playing Dobbins was setting me up for AJ Brown. I think that's the last flex here. The Titans are a tough offense to fade. Even if you're playing the Ravens to win through Dobbins, they're going to throw. It could be Brown, it could be Corey Davis. But
yeah, I mean, I think even if that game is close, the Ravens will still give it to Dobbins around the goal line, you know?
yeah.
So then who's the D, Chicago or Seattle?
I think Chicago with Akers in the lineup.
Well, you could also play Seattle and then just hope Walford fucks it up a lot.
That's what I was thinking is you get some
Mm-hmm.
turnovers there, but Akers still plays the whole game.
Yeah, and part of the Akers thing is that he is like basically a 3-down guy, workhorse. So if you're truly worried he's game script dependent, then he isn't a great play. So I think he can survive Seattle D.
They say every lineup needs to tell a story. This lineup tells the story of 5 men who tried to build a lineup together.
We're not going to be duped, that's for sure.
And we wound up fading Washington and Chicago, which is popular fades, but we're not on the chalk as we do that. So
Yeah. Don't dupe us, bros. Just let us have our negative UV lineup.
it's dumb enough to do that.
Yeah, I don't think we're not going to have anyone duping us, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, let's see you guys get a show.
Dan, I don't think filling out a bracket would have gone very well.
That would have been
trying to build the lineup.
TV. Yeah.
We would have had the Bears beating like the Browns in the finals.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We appreciate you tuning in for Ship Chasing FFPC Playoff Challenge Week. Please subscribe if you haven't. I mean, we are so done with 1,000 subs. We have our eyes set on 2,000 subs. That is the next stretch goal. We have Hasan, Rahim, and Blair Andrews. Please check out Blair's article on expected points. Are you guys going to be rolling the fantasy football report on Rotoviz throughout the playoffs?
We are not, but I know that Sean and Colum have covered or are going to be covering the playoff challenge on Rotoviz Overtime, and I also think Curtis is coming out with another kind of strategy article on this format tomorrow. So definitely look out for that.
Awesome. And Ben, Pat, and I will be back on Friday night. We're going to have Leone and Dink, I believe. We're going to do a final build show, kind of last minute stuff once we get all of the, hopefully injury news and stuff getting closer to finalize before Saturday. So we're going to do that, I believe, later on Friday night, 10 or 10:30 Eastern on Friday night. Pat, you guys did a show last night on the Establish the Run podcast feed. If people want to check that out,
Establish the Edge.
Establish the Edge. Are you publishing? Are your ownership projections up on ETR?
They are, yeah. If you go to the ETR projections, which Leone's done, my ownership projections are listed there as well.
Yep. And Gretch, you just put out an article on the Substack, some thoughts on the 2020 season. Your wrap up, you just want that money coming in, right? You tell people to keep subscribing to Substack because you're going to be posting every day throughout the off season.
No, maybe once a week. I just figured I needed to write something. No, yeah, I was thinking about some things. I wanted to write it. Figured people might want to read it. So
no, it was good. So yes, we appreciate you guys coming out. We always love this contest. Always enjoy talking about it. So appreciate you guys hang out. We will be back on Friday. For Hasan, for Blair, for Ben Gretch, for Pat Carrain, I'm Pete. We'll see you guys on Friday.